Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Bullpen Podcast. Happy Sunday, everyone. Hope everyone's enjoying their Sunday evening on this Sunday, August 20th. I'm your host, Adam Kunos. You can follow me on Twitter at Kunos19. Don't forget to follow the podcast at the Bullpen Pod on Twitter as well. Also, make sure to head over to YouTube to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of your latest baseball videos and live shows. The Bullpen Podcast is sponsored by Fanatics. Head on over to Fanatics using the Linktree link in our Twitter bio for everything Major League Baseball, including the latest hats, jerseys, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and more. Also, you can find your latest Low League Classic gear featuring the Philadelphia Phillies and the Washington Nationals. Once again, everyone, happy Sunday to all. Hope everyone's enjoying this Sunday evening. It's been a great Sunday down here in the state of Florida. We're progressing along with school. A little fun fact about my school journey. I am coming down to the end of everything for my college degree for sports management. I'm down to my final 2 assignments, so those are going to be submitted this week, and then I will be completely done with school. Kind of a 6.5-year journey with a bit of a, say, 15-plus year gap in between year 2 and year 3, minor detail there, but that journey will officially come to an end this week. If you're listening to this podcast during tonight's game, we're hoping you're enjoying tonight's Sunday night broadcast of the Little League Classic featuring the Philadelphia Phillies and Washington Nationals. Right now, the Nationals do lead the Phillies 4-0 after 3 innings. Once again, everyone, welcome back to the Bullpen Podcast. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. We are going to talk a couple things about during the show. We got the Wander Franco update situation to go through. We're also going to take a deep dive into relocation versus expansion. What are my thoughts on relocating a baseball team to a new city or the possibility of just expanding the league altogether? So I'm going to give you my deep thoughts on that. And we're also going to go into this week's bullpen picks as well. But first, let's break into the story that kind of shocked a lot of people earlier this week. That is that Wander Franco and the Tampa Bay Rays came to a mutual agreement that they would place him on the restrictive list following some social media posts of allegations of an improper relationship that surfaced over this past weekend. I am going to give you an update on what is going on and kind of my thoughts on what the future for Franco will be in Major League Baseball. So, on Monday, the Rays announced that they reached a mutual agreement with Wander Franco and placed Franco on the restricted list following some social media allegations that did surface. They kind of went viral of an inappropriate relationship that Franco had back in the Dominican Republic. Now, he did not travel with the Rays following Sunday's series finale in San Francisco. He was in the dugout for the first 5 innings, but did leave before the end of the game. He did play prior to, but was, I believe he was benched prior to that game as well during the game. So he is not with the Rays currently. He is dealing with these allegations of an inappropriate relationship. Now, this investigation is taking place in the Dominican Republic, so he is going to be gone from the Rays for a substantial amount of time. Kevin Cash, who was asked about this following Sunday's game, was quoted saying a couple things. First, about why Franco didn't play on Sunday. He was quoted saying it was just an off day. It was a scheduled off day for Wander Franco. He was scheduled to have Sunday off. He wasn't scheduled to play, so he was scheduled to take that day off completely. And then when asked about the allegations, he said, "I am aware of the speculation. I'm just not going to comment. I'm not going to comment on that any further." Smart quote by Kevin Cash, in my opinion. I'm just saying he was aware. No further comment to that. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays are fully cooperating with Major League Baseball's investigation into this investigation. They are pretty much doing this by the book. They have moved Franco away from the team to kind of not be a distraction. They are going to be fully cooperating with Major League Baseball. But a story that did come out a few days later, and this was an insider source, Hector Gomez, was quoted as saying, "It is very unlikely that Wander Franco will ever play Major League Baseball ever again, judging by the results of the investigation that are currently being played out." Now, what that means, if you want to read between the lines, that if this investigation goes south for Franco and he is found guilty on these charges, his baseball career is pretty much going to end before it even got started. Now, Franco is 22 years old. He signed an 11-year deal, $182 million contract with the Rays in 2021, and that's the largest contract in franchise history. He was named to the 2023 All-Star team this year. He's having a pretty good year so far, 281 average, 17 home runs, 58 RBIs, 124 hits, stole 30 bases so far. Again, I've been looking into the story. I've pretty much been reading the same thing. Again, we don't know the full details of the story as of right now. There's still a lot that we're not being told. There's still a lot of details that have not been released publicly yet, and we don't expect that these details will be released publicly. I don't think we'll get the full extent of the story until the investigation comes to a close, until we find out the results and we find out what the future for Wander Franco is. Now, what does this mean for the Rays? Obviously, they lose a great shortstop in their franchise. They do have to bring up some minor league help for that, but it is going to be a hard fill for the Rays to do this. Now, the Rays currently sit, they are in the driver's seat for the top wild card spot in the American League. They're 75-51, 5 games ahead of the Astros. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They did win today, but you have to think that some chatter has to be going around the Rays clubhouse right now. There has to be some talk about this in the Rays clubhouse. Now, obviously, behind closed doors, probably between players, make sure nothing gets leaked out to the media. But you have to think that even though they're being told, hey, the distraction has been moved away, Franco is no longer with the team right now, there are players probably still thinking about this. I mean, if I was on the team, I would still probably have this on the back of my mind, just thinking, okay, what's this going to mean for him? Does he return to the team? What happens when and if he does return to the team? And it's a big if he returns to the team. From what I've been seeing, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he is going to return to the Rays at least this year. Now, next year's going to be a completely different story when we get to that. Situation on reporting for spring training in 2024. But for 2023, I am not expecting Franco to be returning to this team at all. I think his season is done. And is his career done? I'm not entirely sure if his career is going to be done. I don't know if his career is going to be over after this. If you read between the lines, if you read into Gomez's quote saying that it's very unlikely that Franco plays Major League Baseball ever again, it's a kind of a 50-50 toss-up, in my opinion, on if Franco's going to be playing. Again, I am not a lawyer. I do not have a law degree. I'm just giving you my opinion on what's going on. I don't know the full details of this investigation. Once we do find out more about this investigation, we will tweet out some quotes on Twitter, so please make sure to stay tuned to the Bullpen Podcast for the latest. Also, just kind of keep an eye on ESPN, Sports Illustrated. They've been tweeting out updates on this story as well. I know USA Today's tweeted out a couple stories. CNN's responding to this story. So I'll just stick to your trusted news source that you follow for more details on this story. Yes, we're going to bring you more details on this as well. But if you want more facts about this, more legal facts on this, stick to your trusted sources on this. I mean, we can give you quotes and everything, but if you want more legal facts on what's going on, stick to your trusted sources. Moving on to our kind of big story that I kind of followed up on this week. So I was kind of going through YouTube this week. I happened to come across a Brody Brazil video where he was going, or he posts videos on YouTube. If you haven't had a chance to watch his videos, I highly recommend subscribing to Brody Brazil on YouTube. He's out in the Bay Area for NBC, I believe the Bay Area with the Athletics, San Jose Sharks as well. Great reporter, has some great content. I highly recommend you go and watch his videos. He did a video on the Milwaukee Brewers and their stadium situation and the possibility that the Brewers could leave Milwaukee if they do not get money for stadium upgrades to American Family Field. Now, a little bit about the history of the stadium. The stadium opened back in 2001 as Miller Park. They were played in County Stadium, which is just right across the street. When the Brewers got to Milwaukee, they played in that stadium from the 70s on to the late 90s, 2000s. Moved into Miller Park in 2021. The cost to build Miller Park back in 2001, I'm getting my years mixed up, I apologize, was $400 million. cost of that today would be, if I'm reading this correctly, $661 billion to build that stadium in today's dollars. Opened in 2001. Now, there was a little bit of tragedy that did happen with the stadium. During a high wind incident, a crane known as Big Blue collapsed while they were putting the roof on the stadium. Collapsed, killing 3 construction workers, Jeff Worcester, William DeGrave, and Jerome Starr, who were in a crane suspended about 300 feet in the air, were hit by the debris from the crane, and the crane itself died instantly. It was a huge tragedy. If you have a chance to go up to American Family Field, there is a memorial for the construction workers, the names of everyone who built the stadium and the 3 construction workers who died. I highly recommend you go and visit that memorial, pay your respects to the construction workers. So right now that the Milwaukee Brewers, they're asking for money to upgrade the stadium. Earlier this year, Governor Tony Evers proposed spending $290 million on upgrading American Family Field. Now, if you haven't been to the park, it is a beautiful stadium. I had a chance to go there in 2022 to see a Brewers-Padres game. It was a very nice field. I think it's well laid out. There was a lot of green at the time, the steel, a lot of green in the stadium, in my opinion, but I'm pretty sure they've gone and made some minor upgrades just with the decor itself. Again, beautiful stadium. If you're watching the show, I do have a picture of the stadium while it's open. It has a retractable roof that kind of folds in the middle, opens up kind of like almost like a fan-shaped retractable roof. Gorgeous field, gorgeous venue in a great location near the city of Milwaukee. Easy to get to. I believe if you take I-94 from Chicago, you can get to the stadium. For any of my friends up in the Chicago, Milwaukee area, please tell me if I'm right or wrong. I have not been there since 2002, so it has been a while since I traveled up I-94 to Wisconsin. Now, if you look at what the Brewers are threatening for, they are saying that if we don't get a new stadium deal, we could leave the city of Milwaukee, go to places like Nashville, Louisville, Las Vegas, Charlotte, cities that are looking to bring in an MLB franchise. Now, is this a smart move by Major League Baseball or a smart move by Milwaukee Brewers? It's a kind of a scare tactic. You scare the city, the stadium that you're playing, and saying, hey, if we don't get the money for the stadium upgrades or a new stadium, we'll just pack up and leave. We've seen this happen before. We've seen it work a couple of times. The Florida Marlins, I don't think if they were ever in a relocation proposal back when they got over to Lone Park down in Miami. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I know they've changed that name from Marlins Park to Lone Depot Park. That's the name of the stadium. You saw the Texas Rangers. They got a brand new stadium about a few years ago, opened up in 2020. The Atlanta Braves just moved from their stadium over to SunTrust Park, downtown area. So we're seeing a lot of teams kind of going to this, hey, we want money for a new stadium, or we're not happy in the current stadium we're playing. We want a brand new stadium. I remember back in like the 90s, early 2000s, new stadiums came like every 5 years. It wasn't that we're getting a new stadium every 3 to 4 years or every year and a half. Stadiums took a very long time to populate. I remember the White Sox, when they moved from Old Comiskey Park into Comiskey Park in 1991, you had Baltimore moved into Camden Yards in 95. You had the Mariners move into Safeco Park in 2000 as well. You had new stadiums like Coors Field opening up in the late 90s, Bank One Ballpark at the time opening in Arizona. You had Lone Depot Park open for the Marlins in 2012. And you have good stadium upgrades. I mean, Fenway Park, I had a chance to go up there a few years ago, has some good upgrades for Fenway Park. Wrigley Field has gone through a tremendous renovation. They've brought that stadium more into the 21st century. They've done a great job renovating that stadium. They've added some scoreboards out in the outfields. They've redone the concourse, making it more of a fan-friendly park. But what the Brewers are doing, I don't know if they're really going to be like, hey, we want to leave Milwaukee altogether. I think the Brewers have a wonderful fan base over in Milwaukee. I think they have a great following, and they've been very successful, in my opinion, in Milwaukee. They've had some great seasons going on in Milwaukee. 2008, when they clinched the NL Central Division, made the playoffs for the first time. Then they made the playoffs back in 2011. They had some great success in the late 2010s, and they're looking to have another great season this year. I don't think the Brewers should leave Milwaukee. I think they'd be a fool to leave a great baseball city. Milwaukee is a great baseball city. Fans go out to that park in droves. That stadium is pretty much packed season after season. I don't think the Brewers want to leave Milwaukee. I think they enjoy playing in American Family Field. I think they enjoy playing for City of Milwaukee. So I think they're just kind of doing like a little bit of a scare tactic to get the City of Milwaukee to fork over the money. Now, if you look at other teams that are in stadium situations, the Tampa Bay Rays, we all know that their stadium situation has been public headlines since they moved into the Trop back in '98. It was built. It wasn't a baseball stadium when it opened. It's pretty much a dome stadium that was converted into a baseball stadium. Now, they have done some renovations in the stadium to make it more fan-friendly, and I think it is a good fan-friendly park. But the location of the stadium, the traffic, the hassle to get there is sometimes not worth it to go see the Rays play. They close off the upper deck, and they're one of the best teams in baseball, and they can barely pull a crowd into that stadium just based on where that stadium is located and just how much of a pain in the ass it is to get to that stadium. I've been down to the Trop, I think about maybe half a dozen times now. It is a pain to get down there. It takes about 2 hours to get down there on a good day. And when you get there, it is a mix of fans from out of town, local fans, but you do have a tendency to see more of the opposing team fans in that stadium, which is a tragic shame in itself because the Rays are a damn good baseball team in my opinion. They year after year they are competing for at least an AL East crown. They're competing for a wild card spot, and they're competitive year after year. And it's just a shame that they can't get the following down Tampa. Now, will that change if they're able to get a new stadium? Who knows? We know that a few years back, Major League Baseball came out and said, like, hey, we'll play half the season in Tampa, we'll play half the season in Montreal. I don't know what that thought was. I know that never amounted to anything. Excuse me. But the Rays are just one team that are in dire need of a situation. Now, another team that I think should be getting a new stadium are the Kansas City Royals. They do play at Kauffman Stadium right across from Arrowhead Field in Kansas City. I did read that the Royals are possibly looking to get hopefully a downtown stadium in Kansas City, kind of relocate a little more closer to Kansas City. Again, the Royals, great success in their franchise. World Series in '85, World Series champions in 2015, made back-to-back World Series in 2014, 2015. They are in a little bit of a rebuilding mode right now, but they are a great baseball team. I think Kansas City has a great baseball franchise. They did have the Athletics back in the early 50s, early 60s. They had a second chance at the Royals, and the Royals have seemed to work in Kansas City. I think Kauffman Stadium, I know it's a great stadium. The fountains on left and right field are just kind of one of the more iconic features of that ballpark. I have not had a chance to get out to that ballpark. I've seen it from a highway perspective. It looks like a nice stadium. I have a chance to go out there. But it is an old stadium, and I think that the Royals are possibly looking for a new stadium more closer to the downtown area, or they could potentially be looking at more of an upgrade situation for Kauffman Stadium. Now, we all know about the Oakland Athletics situation with the Coliseum. That is one of the only stadiums that has not seen a major renovation for baseball. You have Mount Davis, which was more of a football renovation. If you look at what that kind of monstrosity is, before Mount Davis was put in, you had a beautiful view of the hills and valleys of Oakland. It was a upper deck that only spanned over to the foul poles, both the left and right field, and you had a gorgeous view of the landscape in the back. And Mount Davis kind of took that away because Al Davis at the time wanted more seats for football. He wanted more revenue for the Oakland Raiders at the time. Half the time, the Coliseum is empty now. We have seen the Athletics do reverse boycotts to where they are pretty much making a statement with these reverse boycotts that they're playing in Oakland. I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea. I have read that the Athletics and White Sox may do a combined reverse boycott here soon. I would love to see that happening for those teams. But again, Oakland, they are in a situation to where they do need a new stadium. I mean, you can only play in the Coliseum for so long. That stadium is run down. My family had a chance to go out there a few years ago. They said the stadium, it leaks, it's dirty. It was just in poor condition. The Coliseum, unfortunately, is in poor condition. I do think that the city of Oakland should keep the Athletics. I would hate to see the Athletics leave for Las Vegas, but I can understand if they do why, because they need a new stadium. Now, the question I'm going to throw out is it better to relocate a Major League Baseball team, or is it better to expand the game? Now, I'm back and forth on this. I do see the benefit of relocating a baseball team, but I also see the benefit of expanding a team. Now, I'm going to comment more on relocation. The last time we saw a baseball team relocate was back in 2004 when the Montreal Expos relocated from Montreal to Washington, D.C. for the 2005 season to become the Washington Nationals. Their first season in Washington, the Nationals finished 81 and 81. They did have some rough times going into 2010, but finally found success in 2012, winning their first NL East title. And then they had winning seasons prior to that, finally winning the World Series in 2019. And they are in a little bit of a rebuild mode, but they did find a winning franchise in DC. As for the fans of Montreal, I hated to see them lose the Expos. The Expos were a team I watched growing up when they came to Chicago playing the Cubs or the White Sox in interleague games. I did have a chance to see them on WGN, Sports Channel, back in the day. I do feel for these cities that lose franchises. The Expos were possibly a team that could have had a better outcome if it wasn't for one thing. And that one thing, if you're a baseball fan, you know what I'm about to say. The 94 strike killed the Montreal Expos. Yes, the 94 strike killed that team. If the 94 strike never happened, if that strike never happened, you would have been celebrating a 94 championship in Montreal. I think that they had the team. We could have possibly seen a all-Canadian World Series that year. The Blue Jays were defending back-to-back World Series champions. They were pretty much playing above 500 baseball. They were competitive for the AL East. You had the White Sox in this newly formed AL Central playing good baseball against the Indians. But I think the Expos, who had the best record at the time, lost a golden opportunity, in my opinion, to be World Series champions or be competitive. Because after the 94 strike, when they came back in 95, the Expos never found success. They traded players like Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, Larry Walker, all to different teams, and they never found success after that season. It's a damn shame that they did. But when they relocated, I could see why they relocated. They weren't drawing enough fans to generate a good attendance record in Montreal. They played at I want to be at an Olympic Stadium. It was a dome stadium back for the Olympics when they were held in Montreal. The final game in Montreal, I remember watching it. They packed that place to the T. All the fans came out, and I'm sitting there asking myself, where were you when this was happening 3 months ago? Where were you when this team needed the attendance? But I think the only thing that could have saved the Expos was the not having that strike in 94. I think that's the only reason why that team left, was because of the strike. Now, we have seen teams kind of threaten. The Twins kind of had that back in 2000 when they were playing in the Metrodome. The Marlins have done it. The Rays have done it. They even kind of talked about maybe moving Arizona, but that's kind of silly. So relocation does work, but it has to be at the right time. It has to be for the right reason. You just can't say, we're going to take the Athletics. They're not drawing in Oakland. Let's move them to Oakland, or let's move them to Vegas. They'll play better. No. You have to find a good reason why. A stadium deal, I don't think, is a reason for a team to relocate. You can work out a deal, in my opinion, with your city or with your county that you're in. There's always a possibility to work out that deal. Now, one thing I will say, is it better to expand? Yes, I will say expansion does have its benefits. You bring in new franchises to cities that are looking for baseball teams. Look at cities that could use a baseball team. Give a franchise back to Montreal. Put a expansion franchise in Vegas, Nashville, Louisville, Charlotte. Those are all areas that could use baseball teams or are striving for baseball teams. A lot of those areas have minor league teams. I think a city that does deserve another shot at baseball team is Montreal. Put a team back in there, rename the Expos, bring the Expos back to Major League Baseball. I think if you bring the Expos back, it is going to be a huge draw in Montreal, and I think it's going to be a great thing if you bring them back. But you also have franchises like Portland. If you want to put another Northwestern team out to kind of rival Seattle, put a team in Portland. Put a team in Vancouver if you want to put another franchise in Canada. There are plenty of cities out there that could use a franchise or want a franchise. Hell, the city of Orlando is pushing for a Major League Baseball team. They got the Orlando Dreamers kind of trademarked. So I know that they're pushing for a franchise down here in Orlando. You have more opportunities, I think, to expand the game. If you're looking to expand the game, expand it to more cities. Just don't take a franchise that's been cemented in a city for 50 plus years and move them to another location. You lose fans, in my opinion, if you do that. I mean, you've seen it so many times. The NFL, you had 3 franchises move within 2 years of each other. The Rams, they moved from St. Louis out to Los Angeles. Then you had the Chargers move from San Diego up to Los Angeles. And you had the Oakland Raiders move down to Vegas. Expand the game. If you're looking to expand the game, expand it to more cities. Expand it to more territories that are looking for a Major League Baseball franchise. Just don't relocate a franchise, in my opinion. Expand to cities that need franchises or that are looking for franchises. I think that's the only way you're going to expand the game if you expand the league itself. Okay, enough of my rant on expansions versus relocation. Let's get into some fun bullpen picks, shall we? So last week we did have 3 picks along the way. My wife still holds a 3-game edge on me. She is over 500 in her picks. I'm still below 500. However, I'm only 3 games behind her in our bullpen picks. So let's see who we're going to be going with this week, shall we? Starting with our first game, this is a NL wildcard showdown out in Philadelphia. You got the San Francisco Giants versus the Philadelphia Phillies. It's a 3-game series that will kick off, I believe, starting tomorrow. I am pulling it up, so just give me one moment. It's a 3-game series that does start tomorrow out in Philadelphia. For game 1, you got the Giants going with Alexander. You got Noah going for Philadelphia. Game 2, the Giants have yet to announce the starter, but they're going to be going up against Walker, who is 13-5 with a 4.03 ERA. And in Game 3, you got Cobb versus Lorenz. Cobb is 6-5 with a 3.75 ERA, while Lorenzen is 7-8 with a 3.57 ERA. Again, this is a wild card matchup going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. Current standings right now, the Phillies do have a 3-game lead over the Giants for the top wild card seed in the National League. The Giants hold a half-game lead over the Cubs. This is going to be a good series. I think this is going to be a potentially defining series. I'm not sure how defining it's going to be, but this is a chance for the Phillies to put some distance between them and the Giants. This is a chance for the Giants to make up those 3 games because you want that home field advantage in the wild card series. Remember, no traveling in the wild card series. You're at that home park for at least 3 games, and you want that home field advantage for the wild card series. As for who we're picking, we both like Philadelphia in this series, so my wife and I will be picking Philadelphia in this series. Will it be a sweep? I don't think it will be a complete sweep. I do think San Francisco gets at least 1 game in this series. If I had to pick, I think they take Game 3. I think the Phillies will take the first 2 games, and I think the Giants do hold off a sweep and salvage Game 3. For our second game, our second series, this is a 4-game series between division leaders, the Minnesota Twins at the Texas Rangers down in Arlington. 4-game series starting on Thursday, so pitching matchups have not yet been set. But as we sit right now out in the American League, both these teams are leading their divisions. The Texas Rangers sit at 72-52, 581. The Twins sit at 65-60, 520. The Twins hold a 6-game lead over the Guardians, while the Rangers hold a 2.5-game lead over the Astros in the American League West. Now, the Twins have managed to put some distance between them and the Guardians. In what is a weak American League Central Division, the Twins are starting to place some distance between them. They're starting to say, you know what, we're taking control of this division. This is our division to win. And good upon them. The White Sox didn't want it. The Tigers don't want it. The Guardians don't seem to want it. So the Twins are like, you know what, we'll take this division if no one's going to kind of lay claim to it. The Astros are in a seesaw battle with the Astros for the American League West. They are 2.5 games above the Astros. Both teams are 4-6 in their last 10 games. The Rangers have lost 4 in a row. The Astros have lost 3 in a row. The Rangers do hold a 185 run differential, while the Twins hold a 43 run differential, both in the positive. So, when you're looking at this series, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a competitive series, but the picks are in here at the Bullpen Podcast. We are both going with the Rangers over the Twins in this series. The last series that we're going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, are the Blue Jays at Orioles. So this game will be taking place in Baltimore. This series will start off on Tuesday. The Blue Jays have set their pitching rotation. You got Kikuchi, 9.4 to 3.44 ERA will be going in Game 1. Gosman will be going in Game 2, 9.7 with a 3.24 ERA. Berrios, who is 9-8 with a 3.39 ERA, will take Game 3. Baltimore has yet to set their rotation. I know that both teams have an off day tomorrow, so we have a chance that Baltimore will set their rotation after tomorrow. Now, this is I think a two-way series that you can look at one way. We'll start with the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are 8.5 games back, but they are a half game back of the Mariners in the American League wild card for that final wild card spot. So this is a series that the Blue Jays could make up ground both in the American League wild card and the American League East race as well. If they can take 2 out of 3 out from Baltimore, they can find themselves back in this American League East race. They can find themselves back in the wild card race, or at least in that third wild card spot. Baltimore, who's having a fantastic season. Those over in Baltimore are playing fantastic baseball. Saw this last year. They're outplaying expectations yet again. Sit at 77-47, 621. They're 3 games over the Rays for the American League East. They can widen the distance between them and Toronto. They can say, you know what, Toronto, we're just going to make it incredibly difficult for you to catch up in the American League East. I mean, if they do sweep this series, they'll put at least an 11.5 game distance between them and the Blue Jays. So what do we think here at the Bullpen Podcast? We are split. I'm taking Baltimore in this series. My wife is taking Toronto. So we did have agreement on the first 2 series, but for the last series, we will be splitting the difference and going opposite. So again, I'm taking Baltimore Blue Jays. We both like the Phillies, and we both like the Rangers in this series. All right, so that brings us to the end of our show. A couple things. I know that we're getting the fall football seasons coming into play, so we will be talking some football on the podcast when we get closer to week 1. I know week 2 of the preseason just wrapped up. I'm getting excited for the Bears playing. My wife, who is a Patriots fan, is getting excited. We got hockey, basketball that just announced their schedules and should be starting their preseasons here in September. Thank you guys very much for tuning in to the show live. Thank you very much for the downloads of this podcast. Also, don't forget to check out the other podcasts within, I guess now, this network, the Live, Laugh Live, or the Live, Laugh Chat podcast that records every Wednesday, releases episodes every Thursday. Once again, my name is Adam Kunos. I am the host of the Bullpen Podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great night, everyone.